Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Bristol, Tennessee Planning Commission meeting of October 19th, 2020. We will do roll call.
Kelly Graham.
Here.
Madeline Luttrell.
Here.
Mark Webb.
Here.
Margaret Firerobin.
Here.
Jason Boer.
Here.
Takai Shu.
Here.
Joel Staten is here. Scott Gaynor.
Here.
Kevin Buck.
Here.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. We are meeting by Zoom. Consequently, we have an announcement needs to be made. Counselor, if you would make the announcement, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to. As you all know by now, Governor Lee has allowed electronic meetings because of the COVID-19 pandemic, at least through October 28th, 2020. One condition of meeting electronically that I'd like to remind everybody of is that if you are attending by audio only, that is, there is no video to show who's speaking, you're asked to identify yourself by name and position when you speak. In order to proceed with meeting electronically, Planning Commission should make a determination that it's necessary to meet electronically in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. At this time, it would be appropriate for the members to discuss whether they think it's appropriate to meet electronically, or if no discussion is necessary, to proceed to a roll call vote and vote that meeting electronically is necessary. If there are no further questions or discussion, then Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you go ahead with the roll call vote.
All right, what we need then is a roll call vote if everybody agrees to meet electronically, please.
Kelly Graham.
Yes.
Madeline Luttrell.
Yes.
Joel Staten is yes. Jason Boer.
Yes.
Kevin Buck.
Yes.
Scott Gaynor.
Yes.
Takai Shu.
Yes.
Mark Webb.
Yes.
Margaret Firerobin.
Yes.
Everybody agrees, sir.
Thank you. Then we will proceed electronically. We're going to approval of minutes. We have two sets of meetings to approve. Winging this just a little bit because I didn't print off the revised agenda. But the first set of minutes we have to approve is the work session, which is from September 21st, 2020. Are there any changes to the work session minutes? As I'm looking at it, I believe the dates on it is wrong.
Yeah. It says August.
Yes, we'll change that.
And you're going to need to do the same thing on the regular minutes too.
Yes.
Okay. We will vote on them individually with the exception of the date that will have to be changed. Are there any other additions or corrections to the workshop minutes? Hearing, seeing none. Motion, please.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
City Council has motioned and second the workshop minutes with the change. Roll call.
Kelly Graham.
Yes.
Madeline Luttrell.
Yes.
Joel Staten is yes. Jason Boer.
Yes.
Kevin Buck.
Yes.
Scott Gaynor.
Yes.
Takai Shu.
Yes.
Mark Webb.
Yes.
Margaret Firerobin.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting. And the same thing is we've got to change the dates. And actually, I see two places on there we have to change the dates. So other than the date changing, is there any other changes or additions to the minutes? Hearing, seeing none, can we have a motion to approve said minutes?
A motion to approve minutes of September 21st with the changes to the dates.
Thank you, Mr. Luttrell. Is there anybody else that will second that?
I'll second.
All right. KB has put the second on the table. Any discussion? Hearing, seeing no discussion, roll call.
Kelly Graham,
Yes.
Madeline Luttrell,
Yes.
Joel Staten. Yes. Jason Boer,
Yes.
Kevin Buck,
Yes.
Scott Gaynor,
Yes.
Takai Shu,
Yes.
Mark Webb,
Yes.
Margaret Fire
Yes.
Kelly, who seconded that motion?
Kevin Buck did.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is unscheduled comments from the public. As I understand, we have some people from the public that are observing the meeting. However, at this point in the meeting, what we're talking about is anything that is not on the agenda. When we get to something on the agenda that you want to address, you will be given an opportunity at that point in time. And when you do address the Planning Commission, we do ask that you give us your name and your address. It'll be for the minutes and it'll be part of the public record. Can I assume we have nobody that wants to speak to the Planning Commission on something that is not on the agenda?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. There is no one in attendance that wants to speak on something that is not on the agenda.
Thank you, sir. We will then move on to old business. The agenda shows that we have no old business. So now we will get into new business. And under new business, we're going to hold a public hearing for a special use permit for 100 Bristol College Drive. Who's got it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, up for consideration is a special use permit for 100 Bristol College Drive. It's for multifamily use in a B3 zone. The applicant is Scott Smile. Owners are Dave Sharp and James Richardson Jr. With that, I will let Ms. Young present you with the material.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're going to begin with a special use permit request, and Mr. Beavers read the general stats here of the owner's address, and the current zoning is B3. The request tonight is for a multifamily use. We've had at least one here lately for where we've had to approve a multifamily use it was in a PBD zone. So tonight will be in a B3 zone is what you will be considering. Here is a aerial map of the property along with the zoning information. So you'll see that the highlighted parcel is located on Bristol College Drive. So this is in behind the new U-Haul, old Kmart, new U-Haul use on West State Street. It is on a kind of commercial cul-de-sac. The buildings that surround this are commercial in nature. So this building was once housed some Bristol College use. To my knowledge, it's been vacant for some time. The next slide just shows that surrounding existing zoning and existing land use. Again, all that area is zoned B3, so the same zoning is in play in the surrounding parcels. The uses, and I have a few photos here in just a second, but you have some vacant parcel to the south. You have some office and commercial use to the east, and then you have a storage unit business to the west of this property. The next slide shows just a kind of conceptual overview of the building. Mr. Smile is planning to place 10 units within the existing building footprint. So there's no new addition or no new expansion of the building footprint. There will be 10 units in this building. He is proposing to add exterior doors where each unit will be accessed from its own exterior door, which will have an awning above the door. And then his proposal will be to add some parking kind of right there in front of the unit. So each unit would have a couple parking spaces to serve their unit. Next slide shows and on this slide, I will say that you can see indicated, I'm sorry, Tim, if you could go back one, but there is some kind of building perimeter landscaping that he's planning with some adding some new bushes and mulch around the perimeter of the site. Okay, so the next slide, this shows standing on Bristol College Drive looking south. So this is looking into the parking lot. The current building entrance is on the far right side from this view, but this is the current access into the site. The next slide shows from standing down in the cul-de-sac, and that's looking kind of through the trees that are right here on the cul-de-sac at this property, looking at the existing entrance. The next slide shows from down in the opposite corner of the parking lot. So this is looking back towards Bristol College Drive from the far end of the site parking lot. And then just a couple of points. We look at this slide most every time we have the special use permit review, but there are some special criteria that governs the Planning Commission's consideration of this requested use. And in preparing to present this to you tonight, we did speak with several of the other departments within the city, such as engineering, public works, police, fire, traffic, and all those departments. So the task that the zoning ordinance, the criteria the zoning ordinance sets out for Planning Commission to review in terms of these special use permit applications are those bullets that are shown on the screen now. And we'll walk through those just one by one to address how this project can meet those criteria. First of all, ingress, egress, and off-street parking. Let's see, Tim, if you don't, yeah, here we go. So you saw the access off of Bristol College Drive. They're not planning any new access points at this time, and anything final access design must be included on the site plan, which will be approved after it's submitted if the special use permit is approved tonight. The multifamily use does require 1.5 parking spaces per unit, so a total of 15 parking spaces. There is quite a bit of parking out here. They'll have to restripe this, and that's something we'll, look at, work through, make sure everything meets our parking regulations once we go through the site plan review process. But they will be required 15 parking spaces, and they do have room to do excess of that. Refuse and service areas, there will be a requirement for them to do commercial refuse collection here. It's not shown on the concept plan now, but the site plan review process, we will make sure that that is shown and that must be screened. So we will be checking that once they submit for their site plan review. Utility availability, water, sanitary sewer service is available from the city of Bristol, and electricity available, of course, by Bristol, Tennessee Essential Services. When they do submit for the site plan requirement or site plan review process, they will be required to submit a landscape plan. So we will check to make sure they do meet all the landscaping requirements contained in our zoning ordinance. Next slide, signage and compatibility of proposed exterior lighting. Any kind of signage that's put out here will be required to meet the city's zoning ordinance. Lighting as well, if added, will be required to meet the lighting ordinance. And that's a maximum of 2-foot candles along all property lines because that area is all zoned with a business zone and business uses out there. There's no adjacent residential. So they will be allowed to do 2-foot candles along property lines if outdoor lighting is proposed. The proposed structure does meet the minimum setback requirements, doesn't lie within a flood hazard area. And from a density perspective, the number of units proposed is less than the maximum number of units allowed by the B3 zone. That number is 15 units per acre, so they're less than that with the 10 proposed for the existing building. And they do meet the lot coverage requirements. General compatibility, and this is the last of those criteria we look at. As I stated when we were looking at the map, this is located on a cul-de-sac that's populated with commercial uses. The variety of uses that extends along this cul-de-sac is a fire damage restoration business, many warehouses, and then the indoor skating rink sits just behind the property. So staff feels that this development would be compatible with the current uses that are along Bristol College Drive. We did notify this project, so it was advertised on October 4th in the Bristol Herald Courier. We did place public notification signs on the site, and adjacent property owners were notified of the request by letter. We did receive 2 comment letters back from what we mailed out. One expressed approval and one expressed opposition. We did have some conversation with the person that expressed opposition to the project because they requested that we contact them. And they stated in conversations that they weren't necessarily absolutely opposed to the project, but they were concerned that location of a residential use here could generate some discord between their existing business and in the avenue of sound complaints, noise complaints that the new residents might call in noise complaints about their business. One telephone call was received, but it was curious questions in nature, so no opinion was expressed. With that, the staff recommendation is for the Planning Commission to approve the special use permit for a multifamily use here without any conditions placed upon the property. Once again, we will work with the applicant through the site plan review process if the special use is approved tonight to make sure all requirements of the zoning ordinance are met. And I believe we have a couple of people here to represent the project. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all might have about the staff presentation and recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one thing, and it was brought to my attention that I forgot to mention, is this meeting is not streaming over the TV channels tonight. There's some software issues with getting it on the TV channels. It is on YouTube and will be posted within 48 hours on our website for viewing. So it still meets the governor's requirements, but we're having some technical difficulties with the TV software. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, sir. All right. Do we have any questions of staff about this proposal?
Yeah, I would just wanted to, I'm assuming I know the answer, but so each of these units will have one entrance, and I assume that for the size they are, that meets fire code to have one entrance?
Yes, they'll have at least one entrance on all the units, and any modifications and construction to that structure will have to meet the appropriate fire codes for the use of that structure. So they will have to go through the building codes, building plans process, also fire codes.
And also, I assume that we don't have any purview over the interior, but at one place it says 10 units. That's what the drawing shows. Another place it says 8. The drawing of interior shows 2 bathrooms, and nowhere does it talk about 2 bathrooms in the verbal part. So just curious for trying to understand what the project actually entails.
They are proposing, as our understanding, 10 units right now, and our understanding at this time is 2-bedroom units. So once they get their drawings in to us, the architecturals will know more about the project, that part of it, but they are proposing 10 units at this time.
The other question I had on the property is whether I would hope if they're doing all this improvement that the parking lot itself will be repaved, or it's in pretty bad shape and would certainly take away from the aesthetic look of the project. So just whether that is included is something we should talk about, or whether it's kind of assumed that they'll take care of it.
Well, that, as long as the parking lot meets, I mean, it's hard surface, so they would have to make sure it's hard surfaced. I don't know that we don't have any regulations that would require them to upgrade it. If they do put in handicap spaces, have the handicap units, they'll have to make those areas meet ADA requirements.
Kevin, do we know if this is going to have independent utility connections, or will it just be one connection for the facility? Plumbing, electric?
That hasn't been determined yet with the property owner. We can serve whatever's needed there from a water sewer standpoint. Have adequate size lines available to service those units if they choose to go individual meter. The sewer connection is not as critical for that because it can all come out the same sewer service line. And then obviously if they want individual electric meters, they'll have to work with BTES on those, putting installation of those and the appropriate fees and permits for those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just curious. Also, will there be any facade changes to the building, or will it just be a grooved metal building?
For that, I would have to defer to, you can ask the developers are in the attendance tonight, and if you all want, we can get them on the public participation computer, and they could probably shed more light on the utilities and facade and parking lot than I can, but we can have them on here in a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Question. To address the concern of the neighbor about noise, is there anything that can be done? I mean, it's unfair to him to, I would think, to have complaint after complaint after complaint after, he's been there with the business that he has had. I can understand his concern there. Is there anything can be done for that, or how is that handled?
Well, certainly the city has a noise ordinance regardless of if your existing facility or proposed facility. So everybody has to abide by that noise ordinance because so that would be how that is regulated. So if they're meeting the noise ordinance currently, then they would still be in compliance with it. If they get out of compliance, obviously they need to address that issue.
And secondly, this is kind of petty, has there been any discussion about changing the name of Bristol College Drive to something more current?
We haven't had a request to change that street name at this time.
What's the buffering situation between this property and the skate rink behind it?
Well, currently there are trees. Let me back up to a slide here. Yeah, I thought it might be able to see it on there, but this is, well, let me turn the pointer on here. This would be the skateway facility. This is a proposed development. And in this area, there are existing trees and vegetation grown up. This property, planning commission could require as a special use that this property add buffering. If you look at our buffering chart, since this is a lesser use, intense use than the B3, the developer of this typically wouldn't be required to put buffering in for this development because he's doing a lesser intense use than the surrounding properties. But planning commission could make that a requirement if they were worried about the impact of this development on other developments around it. Like I said, our zoning ordinance wouldn't require a less intense use R3 to be buffered as a new development from existing business properties around it. So,
yeah, I can imagine what kind of noise there would be if he's skating inside, unless you're, having something out in the things change sometimes.
You can hear the sound system outside of the building
Okay.
because you've got it's got a good heavy bass with it. That's what you'll hear. What the song is, but you can hear the bass. The bass.
Question, the property this building is located, is it a piece of property? And if so, how is that, those two lots accessible? I don't understand the property layout here.
Well, the property for the special use, it's highlighted and had, and that's the
Okay. Okay. I don't, the black lines, they're covered by the correct?
the black lines, yes. This is a separate parcel.
Okay.
Here, the real color here. I think that we use on this property. Many years of that, so but this is patch.
Right? Any questions? I'll take you the numbers and our public also that need to plan these issues that need to be addressed by the developers.
Dan Sharp, Mike and Larry. I remember the question. We get them all around. The question you had, he can cite those.
From the development.
Michael and